I wanted to make a quick video showing a more fun way to play Priest in dungeons and leveling and whatnot. It's a hybrid spec between Disc and Holy that revolves around just spamming Holy Nova. So it lets you enter a dungeon as a healer, but really you're DPS, and you're passively healing with Holy Nova. So you don't really have to think about healing anybody as long as you're doing AoE pulls and the tank is more or less holding aggro. Even if he's not, you're doing so much healing per second that you really don't even have to think about healing that much. And oftentimes you're topping the damage meters as a Holy Priest. So I'll talk a little bit about the spec later. I just kind of want to talk about the gameplay and what's more or less required. Basically, you want to just get in there and be on top of everybody so that your AoE is hitting everyone, and you want to be kind of in the center of things, except for in the Nexus after the first boss where the mobs silence you. Pretty much every dungeon from 70 to 80, you don't even have to worry about stuff that much. You just run in and spam Holy Nova and win. The good thing about it is it creates no threat. Holy Nova creates zero threat, so you can just you can run in right away and start AoEing right away, and you're doing damage right away and you're healing right away. So it's really strong and way more fun than healing when you're just kind of waiting for someone to take damage and you feel kind of useless. So this is just an overlay, a voice recording of some footage I've got, and you can clearly see is just pumping. And I'm not even using really DPS haste pots or whatnot. I'm mostly doing mana pots just so that I can keep up with the group, and I'm drinking right away as soon as I drop combat, and pretty much using mana pots on cooldown. And that's another kind of big part of this spec and playstyle is you want to just keep up with the group and keep the mana rolling so that nobody's waiting on you. If you can get engineering, it's definitely huge because you can sit back and drink and then rocket boot towards the group, and then you've also got the haste gloves enchant, and then bombs and sappers or whatever you want, which can really pump up the DPS. So by doing this and having a couple heirlooms, you'll see yourself get around 1 to 1.3 million XP an hour as long as you're doing fast, efficient runs. So that's pretty good. The most important thing is it's just fun because you get to see big numbers, kind of blow people's minds when you join as a healer, yet you're number one in DPS. And your HPS is often between like 2 and 3k. So it's actually easier to heal this way than it is by playing normal disc with penance because it's kind of hard to AoE heal as disc. And this just makes it super easy. So I guess I'll talk about the glyphs and talents now. Basically, you just want to get Glyph of Holy Nova and Glyph of Power Word Shield, because when you shield people, you'll see this little buff I get. I've got a weak aura that shows it. It's the instant flash heal or the instant smite, and it's kind of useless when you're doing AoE stuff. It's useful when you're just doing between 1 and 3 mobs and you want to sneak in some extra DPS, or maybe the tank's super low so you can target him and just throw a flash heal on him real quick. So the cool thing is you can just heal normally if you're not trying to do AoE or AoE healing. You can just cast flash heals or greater heal or whatever, and it works just as fine as like a normal healer. But by throwing in Prayer of Mending and just spamming Holy Nova, you can pretty much keep everybody topped, including the tank, unless it's some super crazy hard elite pack or something like that. In which case you can just go back to normal flash heals and greater heals and everything. So if you're going to play Shadow, you don't even get an AoE spell until level 75, which is Mind Seer, and the damage is comparable. It's definitely not better. I would kind of lean towards Holy Nova being the higher of the DPS AoE spells, and there's the benefit of you're not wasting a healer slot, and you're keeping up everybody in the group pretty much topped off, so people can just kind of run in and go Mongo and stand in AoE and not really worry about what they're doing because they're just constantly getting topped. So I've got some footage. You can kind of see for yourself the side by side of Mind Seer versus Holy Nova.
Drakari gonna kill anybody who trespass on these lands. Minions of the scale, heed my call. A thousand fangs gonna rend your flesh.
Okay, starting with the Holy Tree, you pretty much just go down to get 25% spell damage. 5% Spirit is pretty good because it increases spell damage, and Surge of Light is kind of a fun utility. It lets you sneak in more DPS or get some flash heals when you might need them. It's not actually super mandatory, but I just find it makes the whole playstyle a bit more fun. And it procs off of almost everything. Like when your Prayer Mending's crit, it procs this, so you could be mid cast and you'll get a Surge of Light. So that's pretty fun. And then going over here into Discipline, I'll just mouse over everything so you can see it. Inner Fire is good because once you hit level 71, your Inner Fire gives you spell damage, so this increases your spell damage. This could be optional if you're doing a lot of solo farming or just trying to really squeeze in some more DPS. But for dungeons, I don't really think it's that necessary because it only works on yourself. Power Infusion gives you insane DPS increase and HPS increase.
Once you hit about level 78, you can get pain suppression, and that's nice. I got this just because it wasn't really taking anything else important, so a nice little 3% reduction. And yeah, I want to experiment with a borrowed time spec. It would pretty much just be full disc with searing light. I'll have to do some testing on that because theoretically you could get a nice haste bonus every time you shield somebody, and that lets you spam Holy Novas a lot quicker. But I'm not sure if that's worth sacrificing the spell damage. Another thing you can experiment with is getting Spirit Tap. It's not really that useful because you can drink most times between packs, but it might give you a nice spell damage increase that could be worth it. For glyphs, uh, Holy Nova, obviously, increases damage and healing by 20%. Powered Shield is nice because it gives a crit chance and it procs Surge of Light, so that can be super useful. And obviously this is locked until 80.